Now Micah Miller trying to spring a pass ahead. Nobody in front of Jack Paling. Moves on with a blast and scores! Jack Paling with
We aren't giving up on chances, and we just got to bottom line execute.
Waits, passes in front. Great save, Paluzzi, as she robs a Gopher in front of her. And that was number 8, Kipton Keller, on the grade A opportunity.
For me as a coach, that's the kind of D you're always looking for, because they don't grow on trees for sure. And he's done a really good job being a captain of a really young team this year.
It was a really cool thing to see for them to really appreciate what I've done on and off the ice.
to the far half wall. Jack Paling trying to play it into the corner. Now Paling turns, squares his body to the slot, sends it up high toward Jack. A shot makes its way through, and they score! Right along the blue line, Nick Paling was in front of the net, and St. Cloud State's got a lead here in the
And welcome back, Huskies Warming House podcast fans. It's episode number 23. I'm Nick Maxson, joining with me from North Dakota. Yes, that North Dakota where he did not lose a bet. Thank you, Go Huskies. Woo. He is there. He's living there full time. He's joining me this week. On this week's episode, we will talk to some special guests from inside the Granite City. We'll also discuss some news and notes around the NHL and college hockey, and have a little bit of a discussion now that the Wild are out. What does that mean about their draft positioning? And so first to start off, Noah, how's it going today? It's Saturday. It's a little bit rainy, a little bit cooler here in the Twin Cities, but how is it up there in the flat prairies of North Dakota?
It is, it's sunny here, but I gotta say, Nick, my mood feels like what it is in Minneapolis. It feels rainy and it feels sad. A little bit.
Are you a sad puppy?
I am a little bit depressed.
Oh, geez.
A game last night. It's tough. It's tough to lose a game like that. But we'll touch on that on the Center Ice View news and notes. We'll get into the deep dive of the playoff woes that the Minnesota Wild have incurred. But speaking of woes, Nick, I think it's important to mention actually our two-line fan trivia segment. I'm just going to roll right into it because I'm not going to play the promo this week. And the reason I'm not going to play the promo this week is because we had a Twitter gaffe today, of all days. The first day with the hats finally here. As you can tell, if you're watching on the YouTube page, I'm wearing the new hats that we're getting ready to send out late next week. It didn't happen because we got logged out of our account for a little bit thanks to Twitter, and it didn't send our tweet. It was going to be a great trivia question with our two guests, which Nolan Walker and Tyler Anderson. It might have been related to them, but we didn't have it. It's fine. It's cool. But with that being said, Nick, we are back Saturday at noon, hopefully, for the next two-line fan trivia, a chance to win one of these babies presented, I should say sponsored, not even sponsored. They're Unreal hats. That's who made the hats.
That was an unreal segment there. Good job.
Terrible. But just a heads up for our fans, we do have a rule change for the trivia here, and it's actually inspired by one of our listeners. His Twitter handle is @BrodyFalconer8, but he goes with his name on Twitter as Coach. So we're going to call this Coach's Orders, and here's our new rule for the trivia. If you do win 1 week, so let's say you win the trivia contest next Saturday, you then cannot answer the question for the week after that. But then after that week, you can answer the question again and then rinse repeat each time that you win. But you will only get one hat if you do win the contest. So you can answer and win as many alternate weeks as you so desire. Brody Falconer, of course, has the lead right now. But you only get one hat, at least within a 6-month time frame. We might change it in a little bit, but that's kind of what our thoughts are right now.
Sound like those carnival rules that you read, when you're at the state fair and you got the bottles, like, one prize per customer per fair. And it's just like, come on, man. I just want to go and throw the rings on the Coke bottles, man. But, it's exciting times. The hat looks good, by the way. I'm supposed to be getting a hat at some point. So we'll see how quick the Postal Service, or do you use a pigeon? What do you do? What do you use up in North Dakota? Do you use a pigeon? Do you use an eagle? I just want to know when I can expect this. And is there a tracking number involved?
Actually, we're going to wait till winter, and we're going to do some Iditarod style. We're going to have the sled dogs bring them up to you via Postal Service. So, I
didn't know they had those. Well, I suppose, and up in North Dakota, you got to do what you got to do. So
it's kind of funny. We had somebody from, I believe, our hometown or near our hometown actually participated in the Iditarod a couple years ago, which pretty cool race. And speaking of races and trying to figure out how to be the best that you can be, thank you to all of our fans, lastly, for answering our survey that we had for about a week and a half to kind of help us make our show better. It's awesome to hear you guys' support. Nick, there was only one question out of the entire survey that had the same answer for every question, and it actually was, should Nick and Noah add a third guest? And everybody that answered the trivia or the survey segment said
Could be a trivia question some days.
I know.
Depending on what, how things are rolling.
Yeah, they all said no. So I don't know. Maybe people like listening to us, or maybe somebody's paying these people to listen to us. I don't know what it is, but nonetheless,
I think you're taking the survey by yourself is what's happening.
I the very last person who took the survey, I don't know who it was. They didn't answer the last question. I don't know if they got to the last question and just said, you know what, I'm done.
I don't think they wanted to make him mad is what I'm thinking. So
Thank you to all of our listeners. We appreciate your support. Obviously, we're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, everything. Subscribe and tell your friends. We're trying to grow this, obviously, not to get too businessy about it, but we are really trying to grow and relay our passion for the game and Huskies hockey and Minnesota hockey at large to everyone that we can. So if you have a chance, win the trivia, share your hat and show everybody, what the hat looks like, and, share our Twitter at Warming House Den. And let's keep this thing rolling, Nick.
I think we should. And I think perfect way to start now, let's get into Center Ice View news and notes.
Center Ice View news and notes. Center Ice View provides you with the best coverage of St. Cloud State Huskies hockey, from game notes, recaps, photos, and more. Go to centericeview.com.
And with that being said, Noah, a couple of very important things happening around college hockey. Today, the Big Ten is meeting to, I would imagine, to discuss how they're going to approach the fall and winter sports coming up for the fall 2020 sports campaigns. And certainly a lot of folks will be tuning in and interested to see exactly what the announcement might look like. Is it going to go for conference-only schedules? We don't know, but again, some big news expected out of that conference come after the weekend. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it should be interesting. Obviously, we're all in limbo. The NCHC might follow suit very quickly. I'm probably going to wait for an announcement here in the coming weeks. Actually, our two guests that we'll have on for the Healthy Scratch both touched on that a little bit of they feel that a decision in some way, shape, or form is looming. So hopefully it's a good decision. Hopefully it's beneficial, but just want some college hockey back for sure.
College hockey isn't back, but what is back is NHL hockey. And we're going to do catching people up on what the qualifying rounds have looked like. Maybe some surprises, you could say, Noah, but certainly in true NHL hockey fashion, just because you are a top seed or a bottom team doesn't mean that your fates are destined, you could say. So let's get everybody caught up with what has happened and kind of go forward and just a quick cap on each series here.
Yeah, a reminder to people, Saturday, August 8th at about 5 o'clock is when we're recording this. So these games, if you're listening, are probably long done by the time that we get to them. But yeah, funny you mentioned upsets. The first one on the docket in the Eastern Conference. Montreal is going to get the winner of the Tampa Bay and Philadelphia Flyers game. Of course, they beat the Pittsburgh Penguins, who were the highest rated seed in the qualifying round for the Eastern Conference. Everyone talked about this one as an upset, or that they were shocked. As well as a couple of other of these series, Chicago and Edmonton we'll get to as well. Is it really that surprising, Nick? Hockey is a game that is predicated so much on creating your own luck and, having stretches of 2 weeks where you're hot or you're not hot or that sort of thing. I know Montreal was a low seed. They haven't had the year that they were looking for, but Pittsburgh's lost 9 of their last 10 playoff games. I don't know if it's really that surprising.
It's weird because Pittsburgh, Sidney Crosby, number 87, turned 33 yesterday on August 7th. And a lot of talk has been around, okay, so you're getting to sort of what could be the downside of his career. You're looking at Evgeny Malkin, guys like Chris Letang who've been on the back end. And, when you talk about surprises, I don't really know how you can describe it, because at the end of the day, these guys have been off for almost 100 days. Anything can happen. And we know how banged up Pittsburgh was before this, and it really was in this qualifying round. It was what team was going to come playing together and kind of gel as fast, and those were the teams that were going to be successful. In Montreal, they just seemed to have a joker card, which is Carey Price, again, the best goaltender of the NHL. And then Montreal was opportunistic. They finished, again, in the game where they finished the series, there wasn't a goal scored until the final 5 minutes of the third period. And so you talk about, again, just being patient and waiting for your chance. Montreal did score a lot in the series, but they scored when they had to. and were able to put away the Pittsburgh Penguins. So I don't know if you want to call it a surprise, but again, Montreal played in more of that team game. I think they bought into the defense that I think they needed. And Pittsburgh, again, just unable to do, as you mentioned, 9 out of 10 losses in Stanley Cup playoff action. So maybe some big changes coming in the Steel City. We'll see. But Pittsburgh, again, out of the Stanley Cup playoffs for the 2020 year.
Yeah, how the mighty have fallen. I feel like they have maybe one more chance to maybe restock the pipeline before they give up on the Crosby-Malkin window. But Montreal, like you mentioned, Shea Weber and Ben Sherratt, monsters on the back end for the Canadiens, as well as Carey Price. But I'm also glad that you kind of mentioned there wasn't a goal scored until the last 5 minutes, because the next series is entering Game 5, of course, fairly soon here. Toronto and Columbus headed to a Game 5, and they're going to get the loser of that Tampa Bay and Philadelphia game. The Maple Leafs, of course, yesterday on Friday were the first NHL team of all time to come back to win after trailing by 3+ goals in the final 5 minutes of an elimination playoff game. So that was heck of a finish. I still think that Columbus has a chance in that series, because I don't think Toronto has the goods to really be gritty enough in a Game 5, but who knows? It's a one-game winner-take-all. Anything can happen. Just ask the Montreal Canadiens. So moving on, New York Islanders, they're going to get the higher seed of Washington and Boston. Washington currently has 1 point, while Boston has none, so Washington just needs to win to face the New York Islanders. Of course, they ousted the Florida Panthers. Not really a surprise. They're a very stingy team defensively, I would say.
No, not a surprise there. Again, Florida sounds like GM Dale Talon will be out as GM with the Florida Panthers. I think that's probably a needed change in that franchise. And speaking of the Boston Bruins, just how bad have they looked in this round robin team? They have not been the team that we expected. Again, this may be just part of the round robin. Boston can be sneaky, we know. With some of their top guns, Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, and as well as David Pastrnak. They can turn it on. Tuukka Rask has been a proven winner in the playoffs. So again, just hopefully just maybe the curse of getting back together. But Boston has not looked solid for being one of the better teams in the regular season.
The challenge for some of these teams that are already in the playoffs, like Boston and Washington too, is they're going to have some teams that are going to be really hungry and chomping at the bit. To be honest with you, maybe Boston benefits from this last series by losing here, because the loser of that Washington-Boston kind of makeup is actually Carolina, who's been off for quite some time after playing the New York Rangers. So that might actually be a really good matchup for Boston. But this Carolina team, they're an up-and-coming team. They're going to be good for a number of years. And, they very handily beat a New York Rangers team that, maybe didn't have the goaltending that they wanted, but, they're another young team that is on the rise as well.
The Rangers surprises me a little bit with some of the comments about the Rangers squad. I mean, they were a team that was kind of on the fringe. Is this a playoff team? Could they really make a run? To me, they're still in their rebuilding phase. I think it was a great experience for the Rangers, but you just can't count on Carolina right now. Ever since Rod Brind'Amour took over as head coach, that team is a completely different squad. And again, up front, Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, and then, of course, in goal, you got Mrazek as well as Reimer, who's been putting together some pretty insane performances for the Carolina Hurricanes on that back end. So that's a really scary team to go up against in the Eastern Conference is Carolina, and you really can't count them out. They've been playing some pretty good hockey.
Yeah, definitely. And the Rangers back to the drawing board, probably need a little bit more help defensively. And then, of course, goaltending. The issue is going to be pressed with Henrik Lundqvist aging and on his way out, and Georgiev looking to take the torch and carry it for the Broadway Blue Shirts. Moving to the Western Conference, Chicago in a heck of a series. I wouldn't say, actually, maybe not a heck of a series. I think you just saw a veteran team really find a way to challenge a young team in the Edmonton Oilers. The Blackhawks did get the best of the Oilers, and they get the winner, which is the Vegas Golden Knights, who just won moments ago today. So they're going to match up against their old pal Robin Lehner and Marc-Andre Fleury, that goaltending duo there. I think that should be a really good series too. I think Chicago might be able to press the issue a little bit. I don't know if they get past Vegas, but that veteran group, Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews has actually played really, really well. Looked like the Jonathan Toews, not of old, but of a couple of years ago. So that should be more interesting than maybe people give it credit for.
Should be. Plus, again, they've got 3 Stanley Cup rings. And again, you talk about experience versus the young legs. Edmonton, still more of a top-heavy team. They've got some problems on their back end and goal, especially on their blue line. So you talk about maybe one that shouldn't be as surprising. Edmonton, again, with, Connor McDavid and, again, Leon Draisaitl, they just don't have the depth I think yet to make a deep Stanley Cup playoff run. Chicago's just been a group that's been there, done that. Again, 3 rings for some of them, including Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. Again, Corey Crawford looks to be almost like the goaltender of old. And again, Chicago could surprise some people. Can never count out to anybody that's got a couple Cups rings on their hand.
Yeah, Corey Crawford hit 50 playoff wins as a goaltender. Not a mark that's easy to hit. So best of luck to both of those teams. The loser of that Vegas Golden Knights game was Colorado, which is a dangerous hockey team, I feel. And they're going to get Arizona, who actually kind of played with fire a little bit against their Nashville Predators, who, Nashville was kind of buzzing against Arizona, but they stayed staunch defensively. They didn't sign Paul Bissonnette and put him out there, so of course they were able to get some goals, and game winner in OT for Arizona to punch their ticket against the Colorado Avalanche. And
more importantly, Noah, they got some pretty staunch goaltending from former Wild goaltender Darcy Kemper, who looks pretty solid. You talk about a guy that's playing with some fire and playing with purpose. Darcy Kemper looks really, really good in that. Arizona, to me, is a team that I think they can still reach in their level. Phil Kessel finally got one in, and I can imagine that maybe for him it might open the floodgates a little bit. Clayton Keller, some of those guys. It's one of those where I think if they start smelling blood, I think they could make a run. But again, Arizona, Darcy Kemper right now is their best player.
Yeah, and you want to capitalize on seeing if you can get Taylor Hall to get jump-started as well, and see if you can get him in a Coyotes sweater long-term amidst the brouhaha that's been going on in the desert otherwise. So
yes,
keep Arizona in the bubble. They seem to be thriving there. But the last two series, series, I should say, the Calgary Flames, who kind of battled a injury-ridden and kind of depleted Winnipeg Jets group that maybe was looking for a little bit more out of just some fortuitous bounces and luck, as well as maybe a little bit more of a Vezina-looking Connor Hellebuck in that series. But nonetheless, Winnipeg Jets are out, Calgary Flames are in. They're going to get the winner of St. Louis and Dallas, which those are two teams that all of these Western Conference teams, St. Louis, Dallas, Colorado, Vegas, not teams that I would want to go up against. But
no slouch by any of them, no slouch at all.
Calgary's gonna get the winner of that game, and then of course the loser of the St. Louis Dallas game gets the highest seed in the West, which of course is the Vancouver Canucks. Nick, your quick thoughts on the Calgary series, and then we're gonna jump into the Wild and Canucks series and break that one down.
No question Winnipeg was hurt even from the start of last season when they didn't get the return of Dustin Byfuglien. That blue line was not the same. They had goaltending and defensive problems there, so they were reliant on outscoring their opponent. And then when you have both Patrick Laine and then again Mark Scheifele go down in game one with injuries and weren't able to return, at least we think, are injuries. It's unfit to play is what we know, but clearly it looks to be some discovery from Mark Scheifele after game one. They were hurting for offense. I mean, that team seemed to be kind of, you talk about rolling the bad dice. Winnipeg was not in a great position after those two could not return to play after game one. And I really think, again, Calgary took advantage of a team that was down on the ropes. They finished the job, and Calgary's going to have a tough test for the quarterfinal round is what we can actually say going on from here. But Winnipeg just overall this season, there's going to be probably looking them to be pretty active in the free agent market, especially on the blue line. And I think they're going to be guys that are going to be wanting to bolster up that side of the ice for sure.
Yeah, especially with the loss of Dustin Byfuglien. Will be interesting to see where our central foes from the north end up after this probably pretty shortened offseason, hopefully. But Calgary, like you mentioned, tough test, but good to see them in the playoffs. I feel like they're kind of like Minnesota a little bit, where they haven't had the best of luck entering the first round lately, the Calgary Flames. But speaking of the Minnesota Wild, Nick, of course, they did lose on Friday night in overtime, 11 seconds into the overtime against the Vancouver Canucks. Lost the series by 3-1. They won the first game of the series, and then, of course, were beaten in Game 2, shut out in Game 3, and then a barn burner to finish Game 4, unfortunately. Minnesota was outscored 12-10 in the series by the Vancouver Canucks. Nick, I mean, what are your initial thoughts on this series? I know that there's a lot of, especially Canucks fans, that have really talked about how, the Canucks were the better team, that this wasn't a matchup, like on paper, just got proven in this, Vancouver was way better. Vancouver certainly was a better team. I'll give them that.
100%.
But I don't know if it was to the extent that people give it. I don't know what your thoughts are.
First of all, Game 1 had a lot to do with coaching and lineup choices. As you know, Brock Besser and Elias Pettersson were actually on separate lines, and I can understand from Travis Green's perspective, and playoff, it's all about balancing your lines. You don't want to be top-heavy. We saw what it does to Edmonton. They're now flying back out of the bubble, if that's some way to do it, even though their bubble is in their home state. But, I digress from that conversation.
Province.
Right, exactly. But you see, they reunited them for game 2, and when these kids are together, Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser, they just create magic together, and it certainly created havoc for the Minnesota defense to the neutral zone, where those two just know how to find each other, and they made the most of their opportunities. Game 3, again, the shutout. Minnesota 5-on-5 going into this series is one of the better 5-on-5 teams, and it took till game 4 to get a 5-on-5 goal. So when you're not winning the 5-on-5 battles, that's a problem. And then game 4, you have to be able to hold a lead. You just have to. I felt like, especially when Eriksson Ek scored to make it 3-1, I felt a little bit of a lax in terms of trying to get the puck down ice and just trying to kill some clock. I mean, I know you want to maintain puck possession, I know you want to still get another goal, but some decisions I don't think were made in the smartest of ways in terms of clock management by the Minnesota Wild. And unfortunately for that overtime goal, was a pretty harmless chance, but it looks like Alex Stalock just did not pick it up off the stick of Chris Tanev. So just an unfortunate way, but that was quite a game 4 against these two foes. Two teams have met each other in the playoffs before. It's been a while, but if these two meet again in the future, it could be some pretty fun battles, especially when you put Kirill Kaprizov into the lineup. I think that's going to add some firepower, especially up front for a Minnesota Wild team that will probably have some changes to the lineup up front in this offseason.
Yeah, hopefully maybe Lafreniere would be kind of nice. We'll talk about the draft lottery after our interview with our special guest. But yeah, like you mentioned, Vancouver in the Pacific Division, Minnesota in the Central. I'm glad that you mentioned 5-on-5 scoring, because I mean, you think about goaltending, which was a big question mark in this series. Vancouver, Markstrom hadn't played in quite a while. He was hurt, and the team was kind of slumping, entering into the COVID break. But Markstrom got healthy. He had a .926 save percentage in the series, 112 saves on 121 shots. Minnesota didn't know what you're going to get out of your goaltending situation. I mean, Kakkonen might have entered that situation at some point, but Alex Stalock definitely deserved every bit of all of his starts. I thought, his numbers don't reflect, he has an .897 and a .303 GAA, but I mean, 104 saves on 116 shots. I mean, that's such a small sample size to really fluctuate those numbers. So I thought both goaltenders were really strong and gave their teams a chance to win. But like you mentioned, until game 4, I don't think Minnesota really found a way to force the issue a little bit and just decide to, put pucks on net and make Markstrom uncomfortable and at least just keep him honest a little bit. I mean, that short side blocker, take note, I guess, if you're St. Louis or Dallas, whoever plays him, Markstrom, maybe you want to just kind of create some awkward opportunities against him there. For me, I guess I thought Minnesota was the better team in terms of like systemic pressure. I thought like when they really established their forecheck and really kind of got going and got to work down below at least the top of the circles, I thought they were the better team and really had a better forecheck. But I mean, Vancouver, they're young guns, the way that they cycle the puck, Elias Pettersson up to, a guy like Quinn Hughes. I mean, they're so opportunistic and so high octane, and when they're not high octane in terms of putting a puck on net, they're drawing penalties. And then their potent power play, which special teams was a huge factor in this series, goes to work and gets the job done. So you're gonna have to stay out of the box against this team, because this young group, they're a run and gun hockey team. They certainly like to play with speed. They're not the Minnesota Wild where they want to play a shutdown brand of hockey. And like I mentioned, I think Vancouver had the better grade A chances and really second chance looks or looks through traffic. Lots of redirects, lots of, especially with a smaller goaltender like Stalock, I thought the Canucks did a nice job of making him uncomfortable. I don't know if Stalock's ever uncomfortable because he looks like he's hopped up on something.
You got to make him uncomfortable in front of him, essentially. And you're absolutely right. There was traffic in front. There was battles in front of both goaltenders, especially in game 4. But for Stalock, again, he's a guy, because of his size, you mentioned, he has to play a little bit more aggressively on top of his crease to take down the angle, which means, if you have lively boards like they do in Edmonton, you can hit a puck intentionally wide and create, a net front scramble. And some of those pot rebounds, they can get in. And for the Minnesota Wild defense, especially in game 4, I know that people have their opinions on Ryan Suter, but his absence was certainly noticeable in game 4. A big reason why Minnesota couldn't hold on to a 2-goal lead after they went up 3-1.
I thought Matt Bartowski actually played well. I mean, he didn't play that much. He played whatever it was, 7 minutes. I know people are going to kind of talking about the game tying and the game winning goals for Vancouver. I know people are going to, a really young mistake by Carson Soucy there, puck watching on that play, Tanner Pearson to Bo Horvat, a really tough way to learn a lesson. But I mean, he played 19 minutes that night. And I thought for a young guy, the rest of the series, I thought he played really well. I thought he was effective. A guy that was kind of invisible to me was Brad Hunt on the back end. I kind of thought the Wild needed more from him, but yes, Ryan Suter's absence was missed. But speaking of veteran experience, Mikko Koivu, we don't know if we've seen the last game for him in a Wild sweater. 1,028 games and over 700 points for the longtime captain of the Wild. We'll wait and kind of see what he has to do with his future. But on his line was Nico Sturm for all but game one of the series. And unfortunately, he was the recipient of that bounce that led to the game winner from the blue line. But other than that, I thought him and Joel Eriksson Ek were two of the Wild's best players in that series. Guys who they played hard-nosed hockey. Marcus Foligno, throw him in there too. Hard-nosed hockey, but not afraid to try to get under people's skin. But
Ryan Hartman did an excellent job in game one.
Yes, agree. You talk about playoff series as everyone thinks the Zach Parisis of the world, the Eric Stahls of the world, they're going to have to get it going. And granted, his superstar power, Kevin Fiala, was on fire for Minnesota. There's no doubt about that. He's going to be a game breaker for a long time. But those depth guys are so crucial when it comes to games like this, especially matching up against a group like Vancouver, who their high-end talent found a way to produce. You have to find a way from your secondary guys to garner some production. And an unfortunate bounce for Nico Sturm to have that puck go over his stick, a puck that's got to get out of the zone, especially early in overtime. As a winger myself, I know how that feels. It's, for lack of a better term, it's a really shitty feeling. Obviously, to know that it's just one of those plays where you make it 100 times and the other 99 times that puck gets out of the zone. And that puck, of course, from the point had eyes and found a way to beat Alex Stalock. But, those depth guys really gave me something to look forward to, especially with the addition of Kaprizov, for the Minnesota Wild to really have a depth core that can force the issue while their superstar guys are either getting the job done or potentially slumping.
And with that, with all these series, Noah, it's whether you like it or not, whether your team advances or not, there's been some pretty intense hockey games. And publicly, former Washington Capitals and the current New York Islanders head coach Barry Trotz actually in favor of actually keeping the format, which I don't disagree with that. We talked about this exact issue one of the earlier episodes on whether the NHL needs to expand the playoff format. I would think that at least this might maybe pose a conversation. However, until Seattle gets in, until maybe some more, maybe the next CBA, maybe you talk about it. But I would like to see some more playoff hockey. I don't know if you would do it the similar way as a qualifying round, but I do think an expansion of the playoffs would be kind of fun. But kind of interesting to see how a current coach in his position, especially with how good the New York Islanders looked against the Florida Panthers, to see that his support for the hockey was there as well. So some pretty interesting stuff around the NHL here, Noah.
A 5-game series is obviously tough, so you're gonna want to find a way to keep it where teams aren't playing way too many extra games, but you keep it fair. Also, like you mentioned too, in playoff hockey, I thought this Vancouver Minnesota series is probably the grittiest series out of all of them potentially. I thought there was a whole lot of nasty going on in that series. But for me, I think 24 teams is a bit much. I think 20 is fair. I think if you have the two current wild cards of the current format play the next two teams that are below them in maybe a best of 3 series, just to give those bubble teams that are still kind of in that tier but miss the opportunity by 1 or 2 points, still get a kick at the can, so to speak. If it happens to be a shootout win that puts one team over the other, or what is the stat, like row
regulation plus overtime wins? Yep.
Yeah, so for me, I wouldn't be opposed to expanding the field in a way like that, where it alters the format a little bit but doesn't really fundamentally change the 16-team playoff format that we're accustomed to seeing. But let us know in the comments what you think, because I know this is a very hot button topic of whether or not the NHL should do this. They should certainly at least look into it and have a good discussion with it, with the GMs and players and that sort of thing. But I don't know, Nick, 24 teams or 2 teams, Stanley Cup playoffs, I'm just happy to see it. So happy
to see hockey. And for our healthy scratch interview segment, 2 current players with the St. Cloud State men's hockey team will introduce Tyler Anderson as well as Nolan Walker, 2 guys hoping to have a playoff series of their own come this upcoming season. We'll hear from these guys here coming up. So again, Tyler Anderson and Nolan Walker, let's welcome them to this week's Healthy Scratch episode.
With a new guest joining every week, it's a lineup chock full of players, coaches, fans, and more. This week's special guest is the Healthy Scratch.
And welcome this week to this Healthy Scratch interview duo. This time we have two players, one forward, one defenseman from the St. Cloud State University men's hockey team. We have Tyler Anderson and as well as Nolan Walker. Gentlemen, it's early in the morning here on this Wednesday. Thanks again for joining us. Welcome into the podcast. How are you guys doing this morning?
Doing really well. Excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, excited to be here for sure. I've listened to you guys before, and you guys have been great, and you guys have had some cool people on. So I'm excited to be here.
Well, definitely appreciate the feedback. That's some pretty high praise, Nick. I didn't know that we were doing a good job.
No, and when they say cool people, they're definitely not referring to us. So I mean, I'll take that with a grain of salt. But thanks, guys, for tuning in. Tyler, we'll start with you, and maybe one of you guys could, both you could answer this question. I know that this topic is old, and I know that this is kind of the main story that's been happening for a few months, but I want to get a player's perspective on what it was like to be in Western Michigan, to be with a team on the ice, and all of a sudden you just realize the season has been ended. So Tyler, I'll start with you. Take us through that Friday and how the news came about and what your reaction was for both yourself and the team.
I just remember it being like such a weird feeling. We had that really great morning skate that we talked about on the Friday morning, and we really felt ready, and we thought this could be a year to surprise some teams and make a push because we were playing some good hockey, and just come in the room and you can kind of feel something was off. Like, you guys check their phones, and then Lars said, "Hey, we're gonna have a meeting," and in 5 minutes, and came in and told us. And I just remember I didn't even know what to feel. Like, it was almost like a numb feeling because you knew that there's something bigger than you was going on, but at the same time, like, you're kind of selfishly just like, why can't we play through this? Like, you just want to make a run for it. So it was a really weird feeling. I felt heartbroken for the seniors, especially, like, looking around and seeing, like, the Paling twins, Jack, Clarkey, like, to know that, and Wally, to know that they're never going to play another game as a Husky, and they had no say in it and in the way they played. That really sucks. So it was a really bittersweet day, but we bussed back, and the bus was more upbeat than I thought. Like, I think that the guys really enjoyed it and took a positive outlook on it. And, it was hard, but I mean, it is what it is. You just have to take it with a grain of salt.
And for you, Nolan, what was your reaction to that news coming down through Friday from Brett Larson?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously disappointing. I remember the night before, we weren't sure what was going to happen. We were watching, I know we had a bunch of guys in our hotel room, and we were watching basketball, and we saw that first coronavirus case come out. I think it was Rudy Gobert in the Utah Jazz, and we knew that wasn't good because we weren't sure anyways if we were going to play. There was not going to be fans. But coming into that Friday, we had, I thought, what was one of our best practices of the year. Even Coach Larson said that. We just came back in the locker room after practice, and it was kind of a weird feeling in the room. And, he came in and said, we were done. Our season was over. And my first thought was I just kind of felt bad for the seniors. They weren't able to finish the year, and they kind of got screwed a little bit. So, no, it was just a weird feeling. And, in that moment, they kind of passed the torch on to, like, Anderson and I. I think we have an obligation now to finish last year. Hopefully we have a season this year, but it was a disappointing feeling. But it happens.
Another guy that actually made his exit too is Mike Gibbons, a longtime assistant coach at the university too. And the reason I kind of bring that up, maybe we'll start with you, Nolan, is new associate head coach is actually Dave Shayak, who was up in your neck of the woods, the University of Alaska Anchorage, for a long time. First, can you kind of maybe speak about what it was like to work with Mike Gibbons? And then do you happen to know Dave Shayak at all before actually having him come to the university?
Yeah, first with Gibby, he's awesome. Like, I think one of the best recruiters in the nation. People say that all the time. He's always on the road. You never know where he's going to be. He's always in Europe or whatever. Just an awesome coach, very relatable to the players. I love Gibby a lot. And the Cheyenne, I grew up watching Alaska Anchorage. I was originally committed there when Cheyenne wasn't the coach, but it was right after he left I committed there. But I grew up, and he was there for 8 years, I think. Kind of took that program. It was in a tough spot up there, but he did a good job. And so I don't really know him that well, but I knew who he was, and I grew up watching UAA and going to the games. So.
And then moving forward, gentlemen, we're in here to August. First of all, we'll start with you, Tyler. How long have you been in St. Cloud? What have you been doing to try to keep in shape throughout the course of this whole pandemic? And what are your thoughts about what we might see or not see as we go towards September and October here for the college hockey season?
So I got here on Friday, so I've been here just over 4 days or whatever it is now. So I can't work out here for 7 days, and then I can't skate because you can't be on campus for 14 days. So me and the Europeans, so me and Dave is my roommate, just been trying to stay as active as we can. We go run track around 10 a.m. every morning and just try to stay moving. And we got a little golf membership too, so get to walking nights during the fall, which was fun. But throughout the summer, Winnipeg, I was lucky enough where we didn't have a ton of cases there, so things started opening up a little bit earlier than everywhere else. So I got to go to my gym very early, and I have a really good trainer that I love working out with. And I think ice opened up in May, like middle of May, so I started skating then. So I've been lucky enough where I've been able to actually train hard and skate hard this summer, and I feel like I put myself in a good spot this year. So, and now coming here, once these 14 days are up, it's going to be really good. We're working out with John Swanson. I think things are going really well. I think when the whole team gets there and we have this month to prepare, however long it's going to be to prepare, we're going to be in a good spot come season time.
Yeah, Nolan, kind of a similar question. Especially being from Anchorage, how has your summer kind of looked? Have you been back home at all, or kind of been in the St. Cloud area? I've
been down. I was in Sioux Falls for quite a bit, where I played juniors, and they didn't have many restrictions there. So I actually was down there quite a bit, working out and training. I was able to skate a lot, and so I was down there a lot this summer, and then I got here a week and a half ago, and I had to quarantine for a week. If you're out of the state and you come into Minnesota, you have to quarantine for 1 week. So similar to Andy, I was outside the track, just trying to stay active, doing a lot of cardio. With me and Kevin Fitzgerald were in the same boat there. But now I'm back on the ice this week and at the new workout place, so it's been great.
Your guys' journey actually to becoming a St. Cloud State Husky looks very, very different. I mean, I suppose you could say Nolan maybe took the more glamorous route following in the USHL, and then Tyler Anderson, actually the first St. Cloud State player from Winnipeg since 2005 to be on the team, and I believe only the second player from the MJ to make it in quite some time. I think Richie Larson might have been the last one. So first, Tyler, let's start with you. Can we kind of talk about your breakout season in Steinbach playing for the Pistons and kind of what it was like to, I guess, suddenly be on the radar for St. Cloud State?
I felt like that season was coming. I was training hard for many years, and especially going to my rookie year, Steinbach, things just didn't seem to click. And then going into that 19-year-old season, I finally just felt ready with my body, I guess, and I got more of an opportunity, and I felt like I took advantage of it, where I just was able to. I got a lot of bounces too. There's a lot of power play times where I get a second assist, and things just seemed to work that year, and I eventually got on radars, and it was Garrett Boyden was the one that actually ended up recruiting me. So talked to him a bunch, and I came and visited St. Cloud, and just on my visit, everything seemed perfect here. I really, really love the feel, and the biggest part to me is I love the guys that I met on my visit. I had a really fun night just hanging out. I could tell it was a special group and a special culture, and it actually reminded me a lot of what I had in Steinbach. We had a really good culture there, so it was definitely a different route, but I'm glad I took it because it gave me some more time to develop, and it allowed me to play when I was ready.
Yeah, definitely. 61 points in just under 100 games. Not a bad gig playing some junior hockey. And Nolan, on your side, You end up in Sioux Falls, 56 points in 60 games, had a really good year and a quarter, I guess I would say. But before that, you actually followed in the route of Nick Dowd, right, at the Culver Military Academy. You moved away from home at age 14. Can you kind of talk about what that was like at such a young age? Because, like, I'm from a small town in North Dakota, and I can't imagine going 10 feet from my house. So I can't imagine what it was like to move halfway across the continent.
Yeah, I left home at 14, so I was at a regional camp in Colorado, and I was looking to get out of the state because hockey, I mean, if I wanted to get further in hockey, I needed to leave the state, basically, I think, and that was my thought process. And I got recruited there. I applied for a scholarship, and I got it, so I thought it was a no-brainer. It was definitely tough leaving home at 14. I probably hadn't even hit puberty yet at the time, so I was still a little kid, 5'3", 120 pounds. But yeah, I think it was probably the best decision I've ever made. I got to meet so many cool people. It was a military academy, so that was a cool perspective. Very diverse school. But yeah, for sure, the first year I was homesick a lot. But once hockey season got going, it got a lot easier. And kind of the rest is history, I guess you could say.
Nolan, somebody still waiting to hit puberty over there is my co-host, Noah Grant. So we're all still waiting for that as well. So, but on to more of a serious topic for you guys. Normally this time of the year, there's a pretty important vote between you guys in terms of voting the team captains. Do you guys have a date set for when that might happen? And maybe some inside information on who you might be voting for? Tyler, we'll start with you.
I don't know when the date is. I don't think there is a set date. I know that Lars really likes to take the team's opinion, and he's a player's coach. He really wants to make sure that the players are happy with the decision. So, but we have a lot of really good leaders in the room, like seniors, juniors, even a few sophomores. There's really good leaders. So there's good options for captains all around. And I think that over this next month, guys will be working on hard, and it'll become more obvious. But as for now, I have no insight for you, so I'm sorry.
Nolan, how about yourself? Any inklings as to who might emerge as someone that way the C or the A in the crest coming this fall?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like Andy said, I don't think we have a set date. I know in the past few years, like leading up to October, I think we've done a vote or something like that. Like you said, we have a lot of guys that can be a captain. I think every guy can step up on a team. I don't think there needs to be one guy. But obviously, in the end, there will be one guy that's a captain. But no, a lot of our seniors like Anderson, I think Kevin Fitzgerald, Will Hammer, I think a lot of those guys that are older have a chance to be our captain. So those are some names.
Speaking of older guys too, Tyler, maybe you can kind of attest to this a little bit. Is there, when you talk about hopefully having a season, is there a sort of maybe surrounding the team an innate fear of wondering what the heck is going to happen if, we don't want to think about it, but potentially the season gets pushed back or it gets altered in any way, shape, or form? Obviously, that's not how anyone wants to end their hockey career or move on in that fashion. But is there, what's kind of the general feeling around the team, especially some of those older guys, about this current situation and uncertainty?
I live with some. I live with Will, Kevin, Dave, and we've had some good conversations about it. And we're realists. We're optimistic. Obviously, like we've had good conversations with Coach, who's said the league wants to play, which is good. But like we're ready for anything. I'm just here to enjoy my last year, regardless. And I'm ready to play. I hope we play, and I just know that it's out of my control. So that's my kind of outlook on it. If it's out of my control, just enjoy it no matter what, and just be ready. It would be awful if we didn't play, but I'm pretty optimistic that there will be a season, and when it starts, I don't know, but as long as I play a few games here my last year, I'll be happy.
Yeah, definitely. And then, of course, the younger guys up and coming. Nolan, you had a pretty fantastic freshman season as a Husky and a really good sophomore year too. Before that, you actually played in the World Junior A Challenge with a couple of teammates, Nick Perbix, Brendan Bushy, to name a few, as well as Northeastern's Tyler Madden. Can you kind of talk about that experience a little bit too? I saw that on paper, and I wanted to know what that tournament was like and kind of how it all went down.
Yeah, it was up in Truro, Nova Scotia. It was cool. I got to play with Sam Henches, Brendan Bushy, and Nick Perbix. So I hadn't met those guys before. So it was awesome to meet them, knowing that I was going to be coming into school with them. We had a very talented team for sure. I think a lot of those guys got drafted in the NHL, which was awesome. And we ended up losing to Canada in the final, Canada West, I think. So, but no, it was an awesome experience. I had never been that far east in Canada, kind of a different place than I'm used to. But no, it was cool for sure.
You know, guys, hockey on the ice is obviously a game we all love, but some of the memories that, we look back on, time playing the game or sometimes best off the ice. And I kind of wanted to get, we'll start with you, Tyler, and maybe your favorite off the ice moment, maybe a funny story or something that really stuck with you from last season. Can you kind of fill us in on a memorable moment from the 2019-20 season?
Yeah, you're right that you definitely remember a lot of things off the ice more than on the ice, but I think for me, just my biggest memories is just be living with my roommates in my class. Living with Kevin Fitzgerald and David Rennick. It's just so funny every day. There's something going on. I know. I think one of my favorite things about being a Husky is that Kevin Fitzgerald gives himself a new nickname like every week. Like he'll be in the gym, call himself Shredder or Pipes, and it's always fun being in the rink with him. But off the top of my head, I can't think of any funny stories. But if I think of one when Walks is talking, I'll pipe up. But yeah, just living with those guys makes it a lot of fun. It's really enjoyable being here.
Nolan, so yeah, any particular off the ice moment that you can remember from last season? Doesn't necessarily have to be a funny moment, but maybe just something that stuck with you, something that just maybe kind of, just something that sticks with you.
Yeah. I think, like Andy said, just coming in the locker room, seeing the guys like Kevin Fitzgerald, he's probably the funniest kid on our team. I think just being around the guys every day in the locker room, I think one moment that stuck out to me, I don't know if it was one moment, but like over the past year, like we started the year in 2-12, and to see us fight through that adversity and come back and battle and to get into that playoff spot almost. Well, we were going to play Western, and I think our odds were good going in there with no fans, but I think that stuck out to me. We didn't have a great start, but I think the adversity that we went through really showed our character, and I thought that was awesome.
You guys actually have some pretty cool off-ice habits too. Nolan, you're an avid snowboarder. You like to hike, you like to fish. Tyler, I believe, weren't you a rugby player at some point?
Yeah.
You were, what do you call it? You were an 8-man in rugby. I have no idea what that means. I would like if you could explain what an 8-man actually is, if you are able to do that. But what was it like kind of being a rugby player, especially up in the heart of Canada?
It was a lot of fun. Actually, I enjoyed rugby a lot because I felt like in hockey, I was so worried about hockey. I'm so competitive. I wanted to win, where I knew I couldn't get out of position to go run around and make hits. And when I was playing high school rugby, it was kind of like an opportunity for me to let loose. I was running around like a maniac. So that was kind of why I was putting 8-man. So in rugby, there's forwards and backs. So the forwards are the big guys that you see in the rucks, and the backs are the really fast guys on the wing. And so I was kind of neither. I wasn't really big enough to be the first guy in the scrum. I wasn't fast enough to be a wing, so I put me in an 8-man. So 8-man does everything. You just run around and be crazy. So it was a lot of fun. I'm really glad I played because I wasn't sure if I was going to play. I was worried about getting hurt, but I got talked into it, and I played for 3 years in high school, and I absolutely loved it.
Nolan, what are kind of some maybe your off-ice habits too? I mean, are you a really good snowboarder? Is there like a certain kind of claim to fame that you have? If someone asks, like, what's your hidden talent? What do you do well?
I like to think. I just started playing golf, so we don't have much to do around here right now, I guess. So I just got a membership. A bunch of us did. And I've really enjoyed playing golf lately. I think I've played the past 5 days, just going with guys. And I haven't been able to snowboard that much lately just because I haven't been home at the right time. I guess the only time I could really be there to snowboard would be during Christmas. But that was more when I was younger. Fishing, obviously, is my other big passion, I guess you could say. I try to fish as much as I can when I'm at home for salmon or halibut or trout. So I guess fishing and golfing are two of my passions right now outside of hockey.
I got to ask too, being from Alaska, what's it like going through kind of the unnatural like sleeping process of having 20 hours of sunlight and then 20 hours of darkness? What's that like? And then when you actually came to the States, was it an adjustment, I guess, to have a quote unquote normal sleeping pattern?
It's definitely, you gotta have good shades in your room for sure. You don't get as much sleep in the summer. I'm up fishing a lot, or outside hiking. I remember, some summers it doesn't get dark at all in the summer during the day, and at night I'll be up in the mountains at like 12 a.m., 1 a.m. just hiking. So that's cool to do that. But yeah, the time change definitely affects me when I come back, because I want to sleep in a lot more. But when I go back home, I'll get up super early. So it just depends on how I'm feeling. But no, it's definitely weird to have that. It's so light out at night, and so.
And maybe a question for both of you. I like to golf. I don't get out to golf as much as I'd like to. I guess my first question to you, Tyler, is when you go out for a round, how many balls do you lose?
I always try to bring 2 sleeves just in case I'm really hooking them, but I've definitely lost more than 6 before.
And for you, Walks, when you head on over to the golf course, do you keep them mostly in the dance floor, as they call it, or sometimes you're chasing through the woods trying to figure out where the ball went?
Yeah, just depends. Yesterday I didn't play too well, but the day before I was proud of myself. I didn't lose 1 ball, but I found a few in the woods, so I added some to my bag. But it just depends, I guess, where you're playing.
Yeah, I'm kind of the Happy Gilmore type where, I don't know how my club survives sometimes. If I miss a putt 2-3 foot, and I swear it ends up in the pond, it's pretty interesting. Let's revert back to some hockey stuff. We talked to Brett Larson a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about how he has been kind of going through the season as far as the Zoom meetings. And he tells me the players themselves have had some players-only Zoom meetings, if I'm correct. First, talk about the meetings as far as, with the coaching staff, and then again, the ones as players. And so what are the things that you're discussing? And is it any different than what you've been doing before? Tyler, we'll start with you.
As far as the coaching ones, we always had like a special guest, like a former Husky that played in the NHL. So those ones were, to me, were always so cool, to be like not face to face, but face to face with some amazing hockey players. It was really inspiring, and I'm really glad we did that. And then the rest of it was just getting information about the upcoming season, or just getting news as it came throughout the summer. So that was really important. I think it was good to have that. We had that probably once every couple weeks throughout the summer. And then the team ones are always fun. It was just a gong show, having 26 voices all on one screen. I remember the first one we did was like peak quarantine, where everyone was in their rooms, and it was a really good time just to see all the boys again, because you didn't know. At that time, we didn't know how long everything was going to last and what was going to happen. So it was a really fun, and it was a really good thing that the coaches wanted us doing that, because I felt like it kept us closer at the summer and just kept us in contact and kept us itching to want to come back and want to be Huskies and play again. So it was really good.
You definitely can send a couple of those Zoom addresses for some of those former NHL right on over to the podcast. Nolan, what about how were those meetings for you from your perspective?
Yeah, it was awesome to see the guys. I think we did it. We were doing it once a week, and then we kind of went back to once every few weeks. So we were just mainly getting information on, kind of what was happening, when we needed to be back. We were originally supposed to be here in June for a month. So we were kind of just waiting to hear. And I know Tyler was going through the border issues. The borders were shut, so he couldn't get here. But it was awesome just to have the guys on there. And then every once in a while we would have alums, Matt Hendricks, Brett Hedican, stick out to me. Those two guys were awesome to have on, and they kind of gave us their time when they were here in St. Cloud, and their time in the NHL too. So it was awesome.
Well, definitely. Speaking of your roommates, Tyler, we've been looking to get David Rennick on, so we'll probably have to figure that one out. Can we kind of talk about him a little bit? Going into his senior year, one, what do you see from him on the ice that makes him so successful? And then two, man, what is that guy like off the ice, just in general?
Well, on the ice for sure, he's one of the most talented goalies. I think he is the most talented goalie I've ever played with or against, for that matter. Or I've never played against him, but just one of the goalies I've seen. He's so talented. He's quick. He's strong. He reads pucks well. He competes. I think he's going to be a very, very good pro goaltender. I think he's one of the best. But what makes David so special is, like he said, he's literally the best guy off the ice. Like, you'll never meet a better person than David Rennick. Like, he's so caring and so happy and so fun. Like, living with him is just hilarious. He's his English is still, he's been here for 4 years. I don't think it's gotten any better. Like it's the pronouns are all wrong, or not the pronouns, the verb tense is all wrong. It's just hilarious. And, I'm really appreciative to have these last 4 years here with him.
And then for you guys, I know with the pandemic and trying to keep in touch, I know you have the Zoom meetings, we just discussed that, but I know that video games isn't often a popular way to try to stay together. Has there been some competition between the boys? Is it Fortnite? Is it Call of Duty? Is it NHL 20? Tell me, Nolan, we'll start with you. Have you been playing with some of the guys? Are you a video game player number one? And if you are, what games are you smashing the buttons on?
Yeah, for sure. This summer I was playing a lot of Fortnite and NHL. Those are my two favorites. I guess a little bit of Warzone too. I'm not very good at it, though. It's tough for me, those games. I'm more of a Fortnite guy. But yeah, me and Micah Miller, my roommate, we get in some intense NHL battles here in our house. So he's pretty good. But we always have fun playing video games, just chilling out on the couch, and that definitely passes by time.
And there's no holes in the wall. There's no angry controllers with the NHL voodoo magic that happens.
I've definitely thrown a controller at the wall and down the stairs.
And then Tyler, we'll switch it over to you. What about yourself? Are you a video game player? And if so, what titles are you working on?
Throughout the year, I have an Xbox here, but I rarely play it. But during quarantine, there's really nothing else to do, so I'd play every day with. We had a good group of guys that played Fortnite, and I got my stimulus check from the Canadian government, so I was calling myself a professional Fortnite player because I was getting paid to play Fortnite. So it was fun. It was a good little while. But during the year, me and David are really competitive in FIFA. That's our game. We love the FIFA. He typically beats me, the European. He knows soccer a little bit better than me, but I'm right there with him. So that's our big competition. No holes in the wall, though.
A little bit of football.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you mentioned Micah Miller. You and him kind of have a similar style of game where you guys like to play with a lot of speed. And I kind of want to talk about both you guys and your style of play. Nolan, starting with you, obviously. If you go back, I think there's a video on YouTube from your highlights in the USHL. One of them has pink ice in it, if I'm not mistaken, too, which has to be a weird experience. But you're a player that seems to be really patient and calm with the puck, especially on the backhand. You seem really comfortable being able to go with both sides of your stick, which I don't think a lot of players are. Can you kind of talk about your player development, about what makes you so calm, especially at high speed carrying the puck?
Yeah, I would say I'm more of a playmaker. Like, I'm always trying to make my teammates better, my line mates. I'm a pass first, I would say, guy. I guess I would say my hockey sense would probably be my best attribute, or whatever you call it. But yeah, I'm just always looking to make my line mates better. Try to be patient with the puck and make the right play. I think being patient is important. But I think that's how I play, I would say.
Tyler, and then for you, I mean, you're a big rangy defenseman, pretty good at jump-starting offensive chances. What do you like about your game? What do you feel that you want to get better at? And then I suppose, Nolan, what do you feel like you want to get better at your game as well? But Tyler, we'll start with you.
I think my biggest attribute is I'm a big competitor. Like, I want to win, and I feel like I know what it takes to win hockey games, like especially down the stretch and come playoff time. Like, I know that you have to be solid defensively, so I feel like it's that knowledge of the game that's one of my biggest attributes. And I feel like I can contribute offensively. I can get pucks through, I can break pucks out. But this year, I'm just looking to be like just a really solid, reliable defenseman that Lars can just put out there in situations and knows where he's going to get every shift. So. That's what I've worked on a lot of summer. I worked on a lot of poise with the puck, just pivoting, transitioning, getting back to pucks. So, and what I really want to get better at, which is obvious because the speed of the game is getting faster every year, is I need to just keep working on my foot speed, just make sure I get back to those pucks first, or can take two strides to the middle so I'm not getting beat wide, so really just working that foot speed as the game gets faster. And I think this next month here working with Swanee, I think that's going to help a lot. So.
Definitely. Nolan, what's one part of your game that you like to improve? And then I also got to ask, if you're coming down one-on-one on Tyler, who wins that battle?
Yeah, probably Tyler. I would say one thing I'm going to try to work on this year is kind of just have a little more edge to my game. Being more physical. I think watching the NHL in the playoffs, like competing as hard as I can, I think I can do a little better job at that. But I'd say my strength too, I've been working on the summer. I think a lot of guys are doing that. But those two things for sure.
Well, actually, my least favorite guy to take me wide.
And then, gentlemen, we obviously talked about before, we have no idea what will happen this season. Have you guys had conversations about, if the season does indeed start, the prospect of playing at the Herb with no fans? Again, we still have no idea what may or may not happen. It certainly might be a possibility. Tyler, we'll start with you. First of all, playing in the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center is quite the experience. I mean, when that building's full, it's one of the most rocking buildings in all of college hockey. But can you imagine playing in front of an empty Herb against opponents like North Dakota, Western Michigan, and Minnesota Duluth? How does that prospect sit in your mind?
Like, it's almost like it's unreal to think about. Like, I feel like I can't even understand what it's going to be like. But you know, if that is the case, which I hope it's not, it'll be weird. But I still feel like, you know, we're here to win games, and we're here because we want to win the games. We want to be here, and I think it'll just bring that youth hockey tournament aspect out of us. You know, we'll still play hard and still want to win, but yeah, definitely we want the fans in the building. It'll be a tough year without them.
And then Nolan, you know, from a player's perspective too, you know, you draw a lot of your energy from the fans, especially, you know, after a physical play, breakaways, those kind of things. You know, playing in front of an empty arena, I imagine, would you think that there'd be some difficulty there in trying to, you know, draw some energy? Or as a player, do you think there's any adjustment you have to make in terms of, you know, have to be, you know, ready for those moments?
Yeah, it'll for sure be weird if there's no fans. I think Coach Larson has been talking to some guys. They're hoping that there's going to be 50% capacity in the stands. We'll see what happens, but yeah, if there's those fans are in our student section, I think one of the best in the country. And I remember my last 2 years, I mean, those games, it's North Dakota at home. I remember last year for sure it was sold out, and like those games bring you so much energy, get the guys going on the bench. And, you know, without that, it definitely will be a little off, but I know we're all playing for something. We're all playing for each other, and, you know, to get better as a team. You know, I think that right there will give us enough energy to be our best. But yeah, we're hoping we have some fans in the stadium. So yeah.
Yeah, hoping the dog pound is filled. And only a couple more questions for you guys. And once again, fellas, thanks for joining us. And you kind of led me into my next point. Let's go back and, you know, pretend that the Herb Brooks is filled. What's one opponent that you guys just look forward to as players getting ready, especially in your home building? Is there one opponent that stands out for both of you that you're like, I need no motivation to get going in this hockey game? Nolan, let's start with you.
Yeah, I'd say North Dakota for sure. I mean, that's an easy answer for a lot of us. I always like playing against Duluth at home. I don't know why. It's just fun atmosphere. We have their fans here. We got a lot of our fans. And then I'd say Denver, North Dakota, and Duluth are my three favorite to play. So,
Tyler, what about you?
My favorite, I think for sure in our conference, I love playing Minnesota Duluth at home. Like Walk said, to me, it's just always such a pro-style game where guys are finishing their checks, and it's literally a game of inches where it'll come down, like that last game came down to the last shift, like a 0-0 game, wherever it was. Like, those games are always so good and so much fun to be a part of. So I feel like that. But I also, I really hope we get to play the Gophers this year. You know, I really like playing the U. I feel like it's good for St. Cloud to be able to show that we're a better or in my opinion, better program, and it's good to be able to play against Monty and show him that show him what he left. So, you know, I hope we get to play them again. And I didn't get to play the game last year, so still looking to play against the Gophers one more time.
We agree that you guys are the better group too. You know, kind of on that vein too, on road trips as well, is there one place that you guys have been to that you've really looked forward to or really enjoy that you maybe never thought you'd get to go to, or you just look forward to going to like Western Michigan or someplace, you know, different?
Yeah, what was surprising me is Western Michigan. I mean, obviously everyone's going to say North Dakota just because their arena is unbelievable. They're always 12,000 fans, but I'd say Western Michigan was the coolest place for me in their student section. You know, you always hear about their student section, how crazy it gets in there. You know, I really enjoyed playing there for sure.
I think my favorite trip this year was Colorado College. Like, if you guys think it's flat in Minnesota, you should come to Manitoba. It's just so flat. So for me, it's just something I've never really experienced before, and to be able to see the mountains from the rink was pretty cool. So hopefully when they build that new rink, there's a little more atmosphere in the games. But the city itself, I really enjoyed CC.
And then final question for me, you guys. Looking at the schedule as it is, obviously we know that the first exhibition game against Guelph is canceled, but if the schedule doesn't have any further changes, you're going to see a couple of teams that we don't normally get to see, Arizona State. But is there any games circled on the calendar that are, you could say, non-conference games that you may be looking forward to? And on top of that, how excited are you for the upcoming season in terms of the players that are coming in, and then more so the group that you have still? What's the thought around the locker room as far as the outlook for this upcoming season? Tyler, we'll start with you.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I think that Arizona State game, if it does happen, is the one I'm circled. They've been a good team the past 2 years, so I'm really excited to see what they are like. What kind of team they are, and I really want to beat them. So that's when I got circled. And like I said, obviously the Gopher game, if that happens, I really want to play the Gophers. So, and then obviously all our in-conference games, I love playing too, like North Dakota. Those are always great games. So, and then as far as, what was the other question you asked?
Just the feelings of, where you think the team is going to be for the
second
season.
And the incoming freshmen. The incoming freshmen have been great. We have 4 incoming freshmen, and then we have 2 grad transfers who are actually living upstairs of the house I'm in. So they've been awesome guys. I've really enjoyed getting to know them. And I haven't seen them skate because I'm still not allowed to skate. But from what I've heard, the skates have been really intense and skates have been good. And that's a good sign right now. So I feel like going into the season, we're a hungry team, especially the way things ended last year, and I think that'll work in your advantage. We want to win. We've been here, especially my group. We've been here 3 years. We're the number 1 ranked team my first 2 years, and we just haven't gotten it done. So we know this is our last shot at it, and we really want to get it done. So I feel really good going into this year that good things can happen. I feel like it's time for good things to happen here.
And Nolan, just to clarify too, when we talk about incoming freshmen, are all freshmen here? And the reason why I ask is VT Mietin, and I know what was in Europe. Now, is every freshman at least on campus or in Minnesota, or is there some players that have yet to make their trip to the St. Cloud area?
I think every freshman is here besides VT. I know he's had some struggles with his visa, but I think he's supposed to be here at the end of August. So, yeah, we're excited to have him here. All the freshmen look great already. They're fitting in really well. And then I think those 2 grad transfers are really going to benefit us. And that experience, I think, Jared Cockrell was a captain last year at Colgate, and Seamus Donahue was, a stud for Michigan Tech. So those 2 are going to bring experience and leadership, which will help us a lot. We're already going to be an older team next year. We were a younger team last year. No, we're looking good this year from the back end out. I mean, we got David coming back, and we're really happy he came back. We didn't know if he was going to come back or not. But yeah, I think we're a solid team, top to bottom, and everyone's looked good. We're hoping that we can play on time this year. We're hearing that it might not start till late November. That's a rumor, but yeah, games I've circled for sure. The Arizona State game is interesting, and newer Division I program, and then the Gopher games. Hopefully those happen still, but home and home. Hopefully we have the Herb rocking. So yeah, those 2 for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Best luck to you guys. We certainly believe you guys have the ability to make a pretty deep run here in the upcoming season, should it happen. Once again, Tyler Anderson and Nolan Walker, thank you both for coming on the show, and we wish you guys the best of luck.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take the Huskies Warming House podcast wherever you go. Find the newest episodes or listen to your favorite on iTunes and Podbean. Get all the latest news and updates at huskieswarminghousepodcast.com, and look for our Facebook page, the Huskies Warming House Podcast, as well as our Twitter feed at Warming House Den. Our Twitter feed will host trivia, updates, and questions for fans, as well as a mailbag where you can tweet us anytime with your questions, concerns, or listener suggestion. And for business inquiries, email us at huskieswarminghousepodcast@outlook.com.
And once again, thanks to both Nolan Walker and Tyler Anderson for joining us. Kind of fun, Noah. They both listened to the podcast, and they actually reached out to us and said, hey, can we be on the show? We're like, yeah, of course. And always happy to have them on. Hopefully we'll get some future players coming in on the podcast here in the next couple of weeks, but always good to hear their insights on what's going on with the team. Speaking of insights, Noah, with the Minnesota Wild loss in this kind of qualifying round, and a couple of things have happened. One, first of all, Pittsburgh lost, which means the 2020 first round pick now goes to next year's 2021, so there only will be one first round pick. On top of that, Minnesota, even though they lost, they have a 12.5% chance of getting Alexis Lafreniere, who is going to be the consensus number 1 pick in this upcoming draft. Noah, how Minnesota would it be in a time where the cap is going to be flat, where you just get Kaprizov to get the number 1 pick, and the Oilers, who have a chance, the Pittsburgh Penguins have a chance? I mean, really, I still think Edmonton's going to pull this out. They have the EA voodoo magic on their side when it comes to the draft lottery. But, I mean, how exciting could this be if this team is able to somehow roll the dice the right way and get the number 1 overall pick in this upcoming draft?
How Minnesota would it be if they get the number 1 overall pick and he turns out to be a bust? I'm just saying. Hopefully,
yeah, that sounds about right.
Hopefully we get the first step out of the way before we have to worry about the second step. But the Minnesota Wild, like you mentioned, like every other team, has a 12.5% chance of getting that number 1 overall pick. But the other consolation for Minnesota that's kind of nice is they are actually the lowest rated team out of the teams that were eliminated from the qualifier that are eligible for the number 1 overall draft pick. So if they don't actually get that pick, they would I believe pick number 9 in the NHL draft. For sure a top 10 pick. The last time Minnesota had a top 10 pick in the NHL draft was Matt Dumba in 2012, 7th overall pick, and before that it was Jonas Brodin at number 10 the year prior in 2011. So the last pick, of course, last year for Minnesota was Matthew Boldy at number 12. And then of course you got Condon and Joel Eriksson Ek are 2 other guys that are top 20 picks for Minnesota. So I think if you're the Wild, you have to take some comfort in the fact that whether you get the first overall pick or the 9th overall pick, I mean, you're still in a very, very deep draft class this year. Have the potential to have a really good pick regardless. So obviously you don't want to lose a series, unfortunately, but if you do lose a series, it's a pretty good consolation prize for our hometown green and wheats, as one would call it.
And it's interesting too, Noah, because you can almost argue with the signing of Kaprizov that they do have a number 1 overall pick. The early projections are saying that, hey, this guy is going to be probably in the Calder race all year next year. Again, we'll see how well he adjusts to the North American style game. We know his ability to put the puck in the net. We know how hungry he is. We know that he can certainly make some things happen that not a lot of players can make. And, so you get Kaprizov, you have him. And then all of a sudden you get Lafreniere. And again, what we're just, having a little fun with this. But how insane would it be for the Minnesota Wild to not have 1 but 2 players in the Calder Trophy race? And that would create a whole different set of questions to how you're going to be able to afford both players. Still, again, the offseason for the Minnesota Wild yet to commence. So still some names potentially could be moving. But some kind of, as you mentioned, it's a good consolation. But now there's some intrigue here with this Minnesota Wild club, and more importantly, it's intrigue on the young talent side. We haven't had really a lot of excitement surrounding that area of this team for a better part of over 10 years, I would say. So this is kind of nice. It's a nice, refreshing way to enter an offseason where, yes, as you mentioned, disappointing, but there's some things to look forward to. There's some bright spots out ahead of this franchise.
Yeah, and it's just interesting with the draft pick potential. There's a lot of expectations on these young guys. Kaprizov for sure, and then Lafreniere wherever he ends up. But like you mentioned, the Minnesota Wild, really haven't had a whole lot to honestly look forward to in quite some time. So it is exciting. Of course, you do have the expansion draft for the Seattle Kraken coming up. So when you talk about freeing up salary cap space, Jonas Brodin or Matt Dumba might be 2 guys that could potentially be on the table, as well as Zach Parise if he does waive his no movement clause as well. So there's a potential salary cap movement, but first, like you and I have just talked about, you have to find a way to hopefully get that number 1 overall pick. I'm going to be honest with you, Nick. I don't normally feel good about Minnesota sports. I don't want to get my hopes up. The draft lottery is Monday night. I don't know. I feel kind of good about this one. I don't know what it is. I just feel like maybe kind of like the Minneapolis Miracle with the Minnesota Vikings, that Minnesota maybe just gets a lucky flip of the coin on this one. I don't know. But we'll have to see, of course, Monday night.
Typical Minnesota sports. fandom is what I hear. And here's why I say that. Good things start to happen, and then you jump on the bandwagon. Then you think, now I'm going to get all the bounces. And I still think Edmonton's going to somehow pull the rug from everybody's feet. I just do. They've done it.
But what good things have we had to build on? We've had a national pandemic. We've had rioting in the streets. We've had a Minnesota Wild playoff exit. MLB is in the crapper kind of sort of right now with their situation. I'm just saying, Nick, I got to root for something, man. You know,
you got to get your hopes up somehow. You know, at the end of it, you can have that dream. Have the dream, because when you wake up, it's going to be pretty crappy when you wake up. But I mean, seriously though, that would be wonderful if this happened. Again, and you talk about a 12.5% chance. I don't think we've discussed this yet. Just how actually big in comparison to a normal draft that would be when you're Minnesota and you're picking in that top 9. I mean, you have what, a 2.5, maybe 1% chance of getting that pick. Now it's at 12.5%. It's every team equally having a share pick on this. Again, so I don't know. I still think Oilers will somehow find a way to rig it. That's the way it goes. But at the end of it, I mean, think of the possibilities of the squad, and you would have to think too that if that does happen, you are going to be a little bit front-loaded. And going back to Dumba and Brodin, you and I talked about this on air and off the air. You know, to me, Brodin is the better defenseman, just in terms of pure skill. I love his skating. I love the shot that Matt Dumba has. But if you're going to go with the overall package, the best two-way defender on the squad to me, with the young legs, it's Jonas Brodin. And again, you know, that doesn't mean that Zach Parise doesn't get traded. He already waived his no movement clause on a trade that fell through this last trade deadline. So a lot of things can still happen. I still think that Victor Rask will be bought out this offseason as well. That will have a little bit of a cap implication for the next couple of seasons, but will, you know, kind of help with that. So I don't know. It's good to have good thoughts every now and then, but I don't know. Maybe it's just my pessimism and my demotivation mentality, as you like to call me, that says, you know, the dream is nice, but you know, when am I going to wake up? So we'll see what happens. But it's nice to have these positive thoughts surrounding the Minnesota Wild here in the off season, as opposed to you know, kind of just dreaming as I want to be that squad, or I want to be that squad because they got all the bells and whistles that we don't have.
You know, the number one overall pick, or the worst team in the NHL, I should say, normally under circumstances, which actually was the Detroit Red Wings, and they fell to number 4, which is really unprecedented here. But it's normally at around 18%, and then I think the next is like 13 or 12.5%. So I mean, you're essentially putting yourself in the 3 worst teams in the league by normal comparison in terms of the draft lottery. But yeah, no, it definitely would be exciting. I think, you know, if that's the case, Alex Galchenyuk unfortunately is on his way out. You know, guys like that, guys like Nico Sturm might have a tough time making that lineup, or Ryan Donato might have a tough time even cracking the squad. But again, these are young guys who haven't played a game in the NHL. So, you know, you have to develop them the right way, and you have to find a way to, you know, have the hype train rolling. But, you know, like they're already printing, you know, number 97 jerseys in the hockey lodge at the Xcel Energy Center, and we don't even know how this kid's going to perform. He could play terribly in 10 games and get sent down to the AHL and then get sent down to the EC. We have no idea. But, you know, of course, how Minnesotan would that be? But
it would follow the storyline pretty good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. But you know, we're just gonna have to wait till Monday night. Got to keep our hopes up. By the time some of you are listening to this, you're probably gonna be laughing your absolute asses off because the Wild didn't get it, and one of those teams that we don't want them to get, like the Pittsburgh Penguins or Edmonton Oilers, got this, and we're gonna look like a bunch of idiots, like we always do, but even more so. But I don't know, Nick. I think this show's running a little long. I think we should probably skedaddle on out of here. What do you think?
I think so too. So again, episode number 23. Thank you everybody once again for your support. And again, thanks you so much for listening. We'll be back next week for episode number 24. Have a great week, and we will again catch you next weekend.